So you're thinking about getting into baking. That's right, just like me. Baking bread. I've always wanted to bake bread and I've done a lot of cooking, and bread is one of those things I've always been interested in, but I was kind of intimidated by the whole process of baking, the yeast and the mixing and all that stuff. But I decided to make this bread called milk bread. That's right. And it looked pretty easy. And I followed this recipe from this website that's called Savor Easy. And the link is down below. And if you're a beginner and you watch how they knead the bread and do all that stuff, then it can be intimidating. So I decided to share this video with you on my journey of making milk bread for the first time. And I'll show you how it came out, and I'll give you a few pointers on what happened with me and what I did to solve the problems and so forth. And just to let you know that you do not have to be perfect, just like these professionals when it comes to baking bread. It doesn't have to be as pretty as they make it look when it comes to the whole process of doing the dough. So I'm just going to share this video with you and just follow along with me. And hey, maybe you'll go make some milk bread. This stuff is delicious, I'm telling you. All right, here we go. Oh, and before we get started, let me point out a few things. This video is from me following another video here on YouTube, and the link is down below, like I said. And the channel name is called Savor Easy, Savoreasy. Now, in her video, she makes it look real easy, and it is an easy recipe, definitely an easy recipe. But I switched it up a little bit. I decided to use a stand mixer instead of doing it all by hand. But I did also try it the exact same way she did it in her video by using the hand to knead the dough and everything else. And I'll show you how that bread came out towards the end of the video. So I did follow her video exactly, and the bread came out beautiful. But there are some things that are a little bit different in the appearance of the dough, how soft the dough was, and everything else. Now, when I did the dough by hand, the dough was a little bit more wetter and more flexible. Elastic is the term I guess you can use when it comes to dough. When I did it by hand, it came out that way. When I did it with the stand mixer, the texture of it came out a little bit different, but you'll see how it came out. So I want to let you know before we do this that you do have an option of mixing the dough by hand and kneading the dough by hand. And you do have the option to use your stand mixer if you have one. I know some people have a hard time kneading dough with their hand, especially for 10 minutes, which in this case is what the other video recommends, is doing it for 10 minutes. But some people can't do that. Arthritis, hand problems, that type of stuff. So if you want to use your stand mixer, you are more than welcome to use it just like I did in this video. And if you decide to use it by hand, hey, it'll come out just as good. So just keep that in mind as we go through these steps in the video. All right, so we're going to start off with 1 cup of warm milk, 1 tablespoon of sugar, and 2 teaspoons of active dry yeast. And we're going to mix it all in there really, really well because we want the yeast to bloom. That's right. And after 10 minutes, your yeast will be bloomed. So it'll take about 10-15 minutes. Don't be scared of the time, but at least make sure it's 10 minutes. And after 10 minutes, the yeast will bloom, and you're going to take 3 cups of all-purpose flour, 1/4 cup of sugar, and 1 teaspoon of salt, and you're going to mix it together. And this tool that you see I'm using, it's a Danish tool, and I'm not sure of the name of it, but it helps out with the mixing really, really well, especially when it comes to wet dough. All right, so instead of me following the video by doing it all by hand, I am using my stand mixer to mix the dough, okay? And the texture will come out just a little bit different, but you're going to use 1 large egg, 1/3 cup of cold melted butter, not cold, but you're going to use a room temperature butter. After you warm up the butter so it can melt, just let it sit until it cools down. Don't add the hot butter to it. And then after that, we're going to add the yeast. That's right. We're going to add the yeast to it and we're going to mix it in. Now, in this case, I'm going to use this tool, or you can use a spatula or whatever. And I'm going to mix it in because when you use your stand mixer, the dough and the flour stick to the bottom. So you don't want to have a dry flour sitting at the bottom of the bowl. So I'm mixing it in before I use the stand mixer. Now, if you watch the video that from the link down below, then you'll see she does it by hand, and she does a really good job at it because obviously she's been doing it for a while. So instead of me doing it by hand and mixing the dough until it's smooth and elastic, I'm using the stand mixer. And this takes probably about 1 minute on a low mix. Make sure you use the hook for it. All right, so I'm going to put some flour down on the board because we're about to go through the steps of rolling the dough just a little bit, and I'm going to spray some non-stick oil on my hand, or you can use regular oil on your hand so that way the dough doesn't stick. Now, like I said earlier, when I did it by hand before the whole step, the dough was stickier. When I use the stand mixer, it's not as sticky, but the dough is pliable, it is stretchy, and it is elastic. It's just a little bit more firmer. Now, if you are scared of kneading dough, rolling it and stuff, don't be, because in this recipe, it does not have to be perfect. So don't be scared of not having the dough look as pretty as it does in the professional videos. All right, so I'm going to roll the dough up and I'm going to make it into a ball. I'm just going to spin it a little bit, tuck my fingers under it. And I'm going to put a little bit of oil in a bowl. It does not have to be a glass bowl, by the way. And I'm just going to make a little ball, tuck it under with the tips of my fingers, and then I'm just going to sit it in the bowl. And I'm going to cover it up. Now, like I said, in the videos, they make it look a lot easier, but don't worry about it. Just get as close as possible as you can to the video. So I'm just going to coat the dough with the oil, press it down just a little bit, not hard, and I'm going to let the dough sit for an hour. But first I have to put the saran wrap on it, and then I'm going to put a towel over it so it can sit for an hour, and the dough should double in size. Now, based on the temperature of your house, that's how long it's going to take for the dough to rise, based on temperature. So the warmer it is, the better. It's a little bit cooler in my house, so I had to put the dough in my garage where it's warmer, and it rose fairly pretty good. It doubled in size. Now, it did double in size, but it took about 2 hours. All right, so after the dough rises, double in sizes, you take it out the bowl, put it on your cutting board. Don't worry about having oil or flour on it, and you're going to cut the dough in half. Try to make it equal size. So you're just going to cut it in half. And this is the part in the video that might intimidate you just a little bit more. Now, when it comes with this dough, I kind of just move it around and let the weight of the dough stretch itself out. And I look at something, it's called a window, and it's like where you can see through part of the dough, okay? And that's pretty much telling you that your dough is good to go. It's ready, all right? It's ready to be rolled and played with. All right, so with this case on my, I guess you can call it a roller, rolling pin, it sticks sometimes. So I sprayed mine with a little bit of non-stick vegetable oil spray. And as you can see, the dough, it's coming out pretty good. So you don't have to make it perfect, just close enough to whereas you can make the little squares and stuff that is required to make the shape of the bread dough. So I just roll it out. And remember, this is my first time doing this dough, doing this bread. Actually, it's more like my third time just because I wanted to practice it so that way I can give you more details about it. So after you roll the dough out, you're going to slice it in half. You're going to separate it into equal parts, and you're going to fold it up or over each other, so to speak, just like this. Now in the other video, the link down below, she does it a little bit different, but like I said, you can just be close enough to where as you get almost the same results that she's getting. because this video is for beginners just like me. So I'm sharing my beginning journey of baking and making breads and stuff like that with you, so you don't get intimidated as well. All right, so the dough is being folded over, and I'm just going to roll it out just like this. And in her videos, they look more perfect, and in this video, it's not as perfect, because hey, end results is what's going to count with this. All right, so I'm going to roll it out. And this is a bread that is so easy to make that I guarantee you, once you make it, you're going to be making it all the time. I guarantee you, because it's an easy bread and it's versatile when it comes to sandwiches and dinner rolls and stuff like that. All right, so now it's time for me to roll it up, and I'm not pushing hard on it or anything. I'm just lightly rolling it up. Now, when you're rolling the dough, you want it to be the width of your baking pan, okay? So just make sure you keep that in mind. As you're rolling it, say, hey, okay, will this fit the pan from side to side the correct way? And now after I roll each piece, I pinch it with both fingers, so that way the ends of the dough does not stick or doesn't come undone. So you're pinching it so it doesn't unroll. And then you take your baking pan and you kind of eyeball it a little bit and make sure that it fit in there. All right, so in this case, it's a little bit bigger, a little bit wider than the baking pan. And oh yeah, make sure you have some parchment paper on the bottom so it doesn't stick. And I've rolled my other pieces. I just wanted you to see how it comes out. So I just repeat the steps with the rest of your dough. Cut them in half, flatten them out, and roll them, and it looks just like this. And now it is time for me to preheat the oven and put some saran wrap on top of it, and then cover it with a towel as well. And I'm going to be putting this outside because it's cooler in my house, and the dough was taking forever to rise, so I had to put it outside in the sun a little bit, and the dough did double in size, and it looks just like this. Big old swollen pieces of beautiful dough. That's right. And as you can see, it's definitely filling it. Now, in this video, I'm going to try to make a perfectly square loaf, and you'll see how that comes out. So if you're thinking of trying to make a perfectly square one, then you'll learn a lesson just like I did in this video, because I was hoping that the dough would rise high. All right, so before you put the lid on it or before you bake it, take 1 egg and a teaspoon of milk, mix it up, and then brush it over the dough. That's right. It's going to give it that nice shiny coat on top of it. All right. You don't have to do it, but it definitely works when it comes to the appearance. All right. So like I said, trying to make a perfectly square loaf right here, and putting the lid on it, and the dough should rise, and then it should be flat on the top as well as the sides and the bottom. All right. So I'm putting this beautiful loaf, or the ideal of it to come out beautiful, I'm putting it in the oven, and I'm going to let it bake for about 20 minutes. All right, 20 minutes. And I am using a gas oven, so if you have an electric one or something, it might take a little bit longer or a little bit less in time. All right, so the 20 minutes is over, and it's time for me to see if it came out perfectly square. Here we go. The uncovering. And remember, this is hot, so be careful and don't burn yourself. And as you can see, it did not come out the way I expected it to. Now, in the other video with the link down below, her video, she's not trying to make a perfect square one. She's just baking it without a lid on it. But mine didn't come out square, so I'm kind of making some stuff up right now. I'm going to put some more of this egg and milk mixture on top of the bread, because now I'm going to put it back in the oven for another few minutes, about 5 minutes, so that way it can get that nice shiny coat on it. Now, I'm assuming that the reason why it doesn't have the shiny coat on it, even though I put some on at the beginning before I baked it the first time, I'm assuming it's because the lid provided a steam to it and it didn't have that nice shiny texture on top of it. So give this a try. This is an experiment. What happens when you add the dough, or when you add the mixture of egg and milk after you bake it. All right, so it's been in there for about 10 minutes. And I'm taking it back out again to see how it looks. Yes, indeed. And this is how it came out. It actually came out not bad, considering the fact that this is my first time trying this technique of baking it with the lid on. And I'm assuming the measurements, I have to go back and look at the measurements of flour and everything, so that way I can make sure the dough rises enough to whereas it comes out flat on top. But in this case, I'm satisfied with it. I'm happy with it. It came out pretty good, and it smells good. It's a beautiful bread. And in some cases, some people would even call this a sexy bread. That's right. And so I'm going to cut into this and see how it came out, because I'm very curious. Looks good. It's nice. It's soft. It's fluffy. It's everything I expected it to be as far as the texture goes. It's not undercooked. It's not overcooked. I'm happy with this. And the taste, amazing. This is a tasty bread. I'm so excited about this bread because I have some things I'm going to try out, like French toast and stuff as well. All right, and here is part of the other loaf I made without having a lid on it, and following the video with the link down below, following that video to the T. Exactly how she did it is exactly how I did it on the darker loaf. And it came out beautiful, tasty. And if I compare it, the flavor to both, one using the stand mixer and one not using a stand mixer like this one comes out perfect in flavor. They come out the same. Amazing. So hey, I don't want you to be intimidated when it comes to baking bread, because it's so easy to do. Well, at least this recipe is easy to do. And like I said, the link is down below. I love watching her videos because she makes it look so easy. And to tell you the truth, it is easy. All right, so that's it. Time for me to go make a sandwich. See you in the next video. Bye.